You've learned to hide your anger like you'd hide a crime, but it was never the problem. It was your greatest forgotten power. And while you try to be the light, your soul screams in the dark. The anger you feel, that trembling fire inside, the rage you swallow behind a fake smile, isn't weakness. It's Aries trying to wake you up. And the more you deny that call, the farther you drift from who you truly are. According to archetypal psychology pioneer James Hillman, our most intense feelings are symbolic voices of the unconscious. And anger is Aries' voice. Not the god of external war, but the inner warrior who rises when you forget to protect yourself. In this video, you'll discover why anger shouldn't be feared. It needs to be heard. You'll learn how to transform that raw fire into courage, clarity, and self-respect. You'll learn what nobody ever taught you, how to wield your sword without wounding. And in the end, you might realize that the anger you've hidden all along is actually the missing key to your freedom. Most people learn early on that feeling anger is ugly, rude, immature, weak. But what if it isn't a character flaw, but a living image of your soul demanding to be heard? In archetypal psychology, affects, like anger, aren't just emotional reactions. They're psychic entities carrying symbolic meaning and transformative power. They're like daemons, inner figures with lives of their own. When you feel anger, something in you refuses to be ignored. It's as if your soul shouts, "Look at me." Yet instead of listening, we tend to silence it through guilt, shame, or self-punishment. Imagine anger as an inner character with color, voice, scent, even a stride. It doesn't arise by chance. It's activated when your soul feels invaded, disrespected, or silenced. Hillman suggested we need to imagine our feelings, give them shape, story, narrative. That changes everything. Instead of repressing or exploding, we begin a dialogue with that part of ourselves. Anger, in this context, is a symbolic messenger. And like any archetypal messenger, it wants to deliver its warning before it's too late. Have you ever stopped to hear what yours is trying to say? Think of the times you swallowed your anger. Maybe at work when you were interrupted yet again, or during a family chat when your pain was dismissed. Your body shook, but you smiled. That anger got no stage, so it turned into an exiled character. Yet even exiled, it keeps acting, from behind decisions you can't explain, sudden crises, stomach or back pain. When the soul isn't heard by consciousness, it speaks through the body. Hillman said, "Every emotion is an image that needs space to exist. Anger only becomes a monster when it has no name. And often, its name is Ares. Yes, that same mythological figure, but not Hollywood's bloodthirsty warrior. Ares in the soul is the one who rises from the ground when nobody else has strength. He's the one who says, 'Enough,' after you've normalized too much hurt. Ares emerges in us when our boundaries have been crossed, repeatedly, subtly, painfully. Anger is the psychic armor he dons to protect the integrity of your soul. And if you silence that force, it won't vanish. It'll just find other ways to show itself. Many try to tame anger with quick fixes, meditation, breathing exercises, positive affirmations. Those are all valid, of course. But without symbolic listening, they become emotional makeup. You might meditate on fire, but if you don't understand where it comes from, you'll keep burning inside. The real invitation here isn't to control anger, but to dialogue with it. A helpful exercise? Write a letter from your anger. Give it a name, a form, a voice. Ask, what do you want to show me that I haven't seen yet? It may hurt, but it can heal. The soul, Hillman said, doesn't want simple solutions. It wants rich images, deep narratives. Anger isn't here by accident, nor is it an emotional glitch. It's the start of your interior mythological journey. And if you dare to listen, you might begin to hear voices long silenced. Among those voices, one stands out above the rest, the warriors, but he's not here to fight. He's here to remind you who you are. There's a part of you that refuses to accept injustice, that hardens its gaze, clenches its fist, and says, "No more." That part has a name, Ares. But don't confuse him with the stereotype of an impulsive, violent god. Here we mean Ares as an archetypal psychic force, the inner warrior living in your soul. He shows up when life demands firmness, when your essence has been trampled so many times that you can't just smile and wave it off anymore. Ares isn't about external war. It's about internal integrity, about remembering what's non-negotiable in you. When you feel anger, it's this warrior rising. He may have been asleep for years, suffocated by beliefs like, it's ugly to be aggressive, or I must always be understanding. But there comes a time he awakens, sometimes quietly, sometimes in a roar. His awakening needn't be violent, but it's always assertive. He's the impulse that helps you leave an abusive relationship, that gives you the strength to stand up for yourself at work, that says no for the first time after a lifetime of yes to please. Ares protects what's sacred. And you know what's most sacred in you? Your soul, your space, your values, your essence. Every time you feel invaded, disrespected, or ignored, Ares stirs. He doesn't shout for the sake of shouting. He shouts because he's not being heard. And what's the biggest mistake? Thinking he's against you. That anger is an enemy to defeat. when in reality, it's a loyal force fighting for you. The problem isn't Ares' existence, but how you relate to him. Those who don't recognize their inner warrior end up outsourcing their power. They wait for others to save them, to defend them, for the world to change. But Ares doesn't wait, he acts. And it's not about impulsiveness, it's about action with presence. It's about taking up your own symbolic sword and drawing your lines. And yes, this applies in real life. When you stop accepting emotional crumbs and decide to invest in what really matters, a cause or a project, it's Ares guiding you. He's the one who pierces fear with courage. Of course, courage doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it's silent, a tough decision made at night with a pounding heart. Sometimes it's simple, canceling plans because you need rest. But behind those gestures is a sustaining force. Ares doesn't have to shout to be strong. He just needs to be remembered. How about honoring this warrior? Start by identifying moments when you needed to defend yourself and couldn't. What would have happened if Ares had shown up then? And what if he's showing up now? What if the discomfort you feel signals that Ares is returning? Not to hurt you, but to protect you. Maybe what follows won't be a war, but the start of reconciling with all you've swallowed. Because when Ares is ignored too long, he transforms. And that's when a darker, more dangerous figure emerges, your shadow. Deny your inner warrior, and you don't eliminate him. You just push him into the psyche's darkest corners. The energy that could have protected you becomes something dangerous. It manifests unconsciously, dysfunctionally, without conscious direction. That's the real danger. When this force isn't recognized as a legitimate part of the soul, it turns shadowy. Unexplained outbursts, silent resentments, passive-aggressive, "I'm fine," and all are distorted expressions of a rejected Ares, a warrior exiled from the heart. Have you ever seen someone who seems far too calm, always understanding, always cool, until they blow up over a misplaced cup? That's effective repression. The mask of peace hides a soul full of unfought battles. In the soul's deep language, what isn't seen becomes symptom. Not just any symptom, but the psyche's distorted way of saying, "Hey, there's something here you need to see." When anger is labeled illness, the body didn't fail. It's the soul that wasn't heard. Constantly striving to be good, spiritual, centered, can hide a fear of your own power. A power perhaps punished in childhood, with lines like, "Angry girls are ugly," "Don't shout like that," "Swallow your tears." We grow up learning. Expressing anger is wrong. But the real mistake is not allowing that energy a symbolic form, a story, a language. Suppressing anger isn't maturity. It's the first step towards somatization, anxiety, chronic fatigue, and often depression. No matter how much a person tries to stay light, the shadow grows. Because unstaged anger finds another route. It sabotages relationships, choices, opportunities. It shows up as silent sabotage, chronic procrastination, emotional dependency. It's as if the warrior says, "Since you won't listen, I'll sneak in." Silence of anger isn't peace. It's a muffled scream corroding you from within. And when that happens, the price is high, because you start losing yourself. The shadow of anger wears subtle shapes, constant sarcasm, that irritation out of nowhere, the need to control everything around you. Those are disguised ways of expressing a force without a home in your soul. And the farther from conscious center it drifts, the more dangerous it becomes. So the path isn't hiding, repressing, or pretending anger doesn't exist. It's facing it head on, giving it image, giving it name, giving it an ear. A good starting point? Ask yourself, what am I avoiding feeling out of fear of becoming someone I don't want to be? That question opens a trail straight to the archetype's heart. There, in the shadow's midst, you can rediscover your own power. Still raw, still wounded, but pulsing. Because what's surfacing isn't your worst. It's your power. And if you learn to shape your anger, you'll find it never wanted to destroy you. It just wanted a place to exist. But to give it that place, you first need to grasp the difference between anger and violence. There's a common and deeply harmful confusion between the two. Many grew up believing any show of anger is aggression, but that belief twists a fundamental truth. Anger, in its essence, isn't an attack. It's an alarm, a visceral cry of the soul demanding respect, space, boundaries. Hillman reminds us the issue isn't the effect itself, but our lack of imagination for it. That is, when we don't know how to give anger a symbolic form, it turns into something frightening and uncontrollable. But when properly heard, it shows where another ends, and you begin. Think, how many times have you let something slide to avoid conflict? And how many times did you leave feeling empty, like you'd betrayed yourself? Your body knows. Anger doesn't appear to cause discord. It appears to indicate an invasion. Emotional, energetic, existential. It stakes a claim. This belongs to me, and it's not being respected. When acknowledged consciously, anger becomes a healthy boundary. But when ignored or repressed, it can explode, or make you sick, or both. Expressing anger with awareness is often an act of love. Self-love, love for relationships, love for truth. Saying no firmly can save a relationship, while silence kills it slowly. When anger's seen as messenger, not villain, it teaches. It teaches tone of voice, timing of withdrawal, the courage to stand up. A practical example, if someone keeps interrupting you in a meeting, take a breath, hold their gaze, and calmly say, I haven't finished yet. No shouting, no self-denial, just presence. That is using anger with soul. And it's not a technique. It's inner presence. It's returning to your body where anger pulses and letting it find expression without turning into a storm. A simple way to start is the anchor phrase practice. Sentences that communicate boundaries with dignity. Examples. I don't feel comfortable with this. I'd rather talk about it later. I need some quiet right now. They may seem small, but when spoken with truth, they carry transformative energy. They're verbal shields, and the world needs to learn to use them. In the archetypal view, what most people lack isn't anger control. It's a symbolic form for it to exist. When you allow yourself to honestly express what's stuck, your body relaxes, your mind clears, and your soul thanks you. Because you start listening again. And when the soul feels heard, it stops shouting. Gradually, anger turns into something else. A compass, a boundary, a direction. You don't need to explode to be respected. You just need to show up. At that point, things begin to shift. You realize that by listening to your anger, you establish a new relationship with your own power. The sword that once hurt now protects. The shout that once scared now communicates. And then an inevitable question arises. What if all this contained energy could be used to build rather than destroy? What if you learned to wield your sword wisely? Once anger is heard, understood, and legitimized as a living part of your soul, something inside changes. The warrior, who once acted on impulse or hid in the shadow, now acts with presence. Not violently, but clearly. The sword here isn't a weapon. It's a symbol of inner sovereignty. Integrating Aries means stopping the fight with yourself and using that force to protect what's sacred in you. The soul doesn't want to erase the warrior. It wants to educate him, to see him firm, yet lucid, present, yet not reactive. Integration begins when power becomes direction. Wielding the sword without wounding means saying what needs saying, without humiliating, without diminishing yourself, without yelling. It means setting boundaries with clean energy. For example, imagine a tough conversation with someone who manipulates you emotionally. You feel anger rising, but instead of shutting up or exploding, you breathe, meet their eyes, and say, I respect myself too much to stay like this. That simple, firm line is an act of sovereignty. It's not about defeating the other. It's about not betraying yourself. And that, my dear, is the sword's true use. In archetypal psychology, every emotion hides a gold potential. Integrated anger reveals courage, firmness, focus. It becomes a channel for just action. How many people do you know who changed their lives after an anger crisis? Who left a toxic job, escaped an abusive relationship, or drew a line after years of silence? The difference lies in what they did with that energy. And that's a choice. You can let anger dominate you, or transmute it into transformation fuel. Transmuting isn't controlling, it's listening deeply. It's like learning to dance with a wild animal inside you, not to tame it, but so it trusts you. Aries, when respected, becomes an ally. He warns you when something's wrong. He urges you to act when your soul stagnates. He reminds you of your worth, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. And the more you talk with him, the clearer your stance in life becomes. Firm, yes, but graceful, with integrity. Integrating Aries means taking the internal throne, not as a tyrant, but as a guardian. One who knows exactly what to protect, when to yield and when to advance. And here's the beauty. You don't have to fight to prove your strength. Just be whole. Just occupy your place. When that happens, even silence becomes a sword. Even your gaze radiates power, because your presence doesn't shout, it commands. And anger, once seen as foe, now walks beside you, not as threat, but as guide. And at this stage, something profound unfolds. You look back and realize all that anger had a purpose. It pushed you toward something greater, toward a new way of standing up, toward a new relationship with your power. And then the inevitable question, if anger has something to teach, what else inside you is trying to show you something? Every time anger appears, it carries a message. And it's no ordinary message. It's a soul's call, a kind of internal alarm saying, you've crossed your own boundaries and need to come back. But we can't always decode that call because we've been trained to silence discomfort. The truth is, anger doesn't want you to attack. It wants you to reclaim your truth, to look within and see what's been ignored for too long. And that gaze can change everything. When anger is treated as enemy, its call becomes noise. But when you stop, listen, and welcome it, something magical happens. The emotion shifts into direction. Then you begin noticing anger always arises in the same place, in situations where you abandoned yourself, where you accepted less than you deserve, where you let someone cross your line. Listening to anger is like opening a sealed letter sent by your soul, and what's inside can be revelatory. Want a simple but powerful exercise? Write to your anger as if it were a person. Ask, what do you want me to see? What are you trying to teach me? Then read it aloud. You'll be amazed at the answers. Sometimes it'll speak of an exhausting relationship. Other times, of a part of you that feels invisible. It may reveal fears, desires, old memories. But here's the point. Anger isn't against you. It's fighting for you. And if you have the courage to listen, you'll see it's just the tip of a much deeper emotional iceberg. In archetypal psychology, every intense emotion is a living figure, trying to guide the soul back to its center. Anger, in this sense, is a daemon holding a compass. And it only annoys you because it's trying to bring you back on course. That's why the question that needs to echo now is, what inside you hasn't been seen? What choice is postponed out of fear? What truth of yours is ignored in the name of others' peace? When you allow yourself to listen, everything starts to make sense. Anger, when truly heard, can reorganize the soul, clear internal rubble, and make room for authenticity. It's as if it says, now that you've listened, we can move on. And moving on isn't forgetting, it's integrating, walking with this force as an ally. Every time you acknowledge anger without losing yourself in it, you become more whole, more lucid, more sovereign. And then, for the first time in a long while, you feel peace. A peace born not of forced silence, but of full presence. And what if that peace is exactly what your soul always wanted? What if listening to your anger is deep down listening to your truest self? Maybe what you feel isn't uncontrolled rage, but a sacred response to a life you no longer fit. If so, your next step isn't to silence it. It's to follow that call, because it won't go away. And the more you ignore it, the louder it screams. And now that you've heard it, what will you do with it? Now that you've made it this far, tell me, how many times have you silenced your anger thinking you were doing the right thing? How many times did you swallow it down, pretend everything was fine, while something inside screamed for justice, respect for you? It's time to stop running. It's time to hear the call, because that anger you feel, it didn't come to dominate you. It came to set you free. It isn't chaos, it's a compass. And the more you listen, the clearer it gets. You can't keep suffocating who you are just to keep others at peace. So now I ask you, with all the presence in the world, what is your anger trying to show you that you still haven't dared to face? Where in your life do you need to draw a new boundary? Who do you need to stop protecting, to finally start protecting yourself? Share which part of your story this topic touched. Let's transform it together. And if you want to keep diving into this kind of content, subscribe to the channel now, because what we're building here goes far beyond thought. It goes straight to the soul